Welcome to CHTA Live, the Resilience Series, bringing you practical content to support strategies and solutions to guide your recovery plans. My name is Vanessa Ledesma, Chief Operations Officer for the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. Thank you for taking time to join us. Our topic today is Rebuilding the Caribbean Focus on Modern Customer Service. Before we proceed with the session, let's go over a few housekeeping items. All participants have been muted. You're encouraged to submit your questions for the panelists during the webinar by submitting them via the Q&A box. Questions will be addressed at the end of the session. The on-demand video recording of today's presentation will be distributed within 48 hours of the webinar. A copy of the presentation and any other support material will be available in the members-only portal. Our session today is scheduled through 3:15 p.m. A special thanks to CHTA strategic partners for their continued support of our programs and towards the industry. CHTA continues to work on behalf of the industry by providing resources to address our member needs and facilitate readiness, training, and recovery. Last week, we launched the CHTA Roundtables, interactive sessions to facilitate candid discussion and best practice sharing among role-specific peer groups. The roundtable discussions will help shape CHTA strategy as we build back the Caribbean. If your role is related to any of our first set of peer groups, register today on our website. CHTA has recently launched a member-exclusive benefit, the CHTA Travel Protection Plan administered by TripMate. Please visit our website for more information as you look into providing your guests assurance and insurance. Participating hotels are eligible to receive a percentage of the premium based upon their CHTA membership status. To the CHTA members joining us today, we value your continued support and encourage you to maximize the resources and tools available to you. If your company is not a member of CHTA, you are missing on valuable resources to support your business continuity. We want and need your involvement. Join the MyCHTA community today. Next week, join us for 2 insightful sessions with lots of data. On Wednesday, September 30th at 4 p.m., a special session in partnership with the U.S. Meat Export Federation and Certified Angus Beef on a 360-degree look at restaurant adaptation and consumer response to this new normal. And on our regular Thursday 2 p.m. spot, Traveling Intentions and Safety Concerns, what's the latest word from the American traveler? You can register today to both of these sessions to save your spot. If this is your first time attending CHTA Live the Resilience Series, we invite you to visit our library of previous webinars, available on demand at the CHTA website. And now for today's topic. Today we are addressing a core principle that is true representative of hospitality. We have gathered a panel of seasoned industry leaders that place a high value to customer service and will share with you how to rebuild the Caribbean focus on modern customer service in today's ever-changing landscape. For Paul Collymore, a seasoned Barbadian hotelier currently in St. Lucia, with extensive experience in operations management and as a certified trainer, Caribbean customer service is a blend of humility, a warm desire to go to the extra mile, and making the person on the receiving end feeling like the most important person. John Quail, who through Springboard Caribbean offers management and leadership training and a range of organizational developmental programs to Caribbean businesses. Caribbean customer service is about genuine warmth and friendliness combined with good quality service, however, can sometimes be inconsistent. In the words of our moderator, Omar, a seasoned Jamaican hotelier and leadership advocate, Caribbean customer service is unpretentious, genuine hospitality straight from the heart. And with those words, I'm going to turn it over to our moderator today, Omar Robinson. Omar, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, panelists. Thanks for joining us this afternoon to discuss Caribbean customer service. The disruption today caused by the COVID-19 pandemic is changing customer behavior and buying habits, causing organizations to rethink their traditional approaches. Even in the midst of the pandemic, customers value emotional connection. They are seeking out brands that understand and can cater to their needs and are actively avoiding those that are judged to have fallen short. In the midst of the pandemic, 43% of consumers are still prepared to sever ties with a brand after a single poor experience. And this number is expected to return to pre-pandemic levels of 74% after, as the customer patience wears thin. What does this mean for us in the Caribbean? How can a region known for great hospitality combat the negatives of the COVID-19 pandemic so that in the end, our customers think positively about their experiences with us? Today, our panel will discuss some of those ways in order to stay relevant. I now turn you over to our first panelist, John Quail.
Thank you, Omar. I've spent a number of years working with organizations outside of the Caribbean, and these are global organizations, looking at the way they deploy service to actually achieve successful results. And these are sort of leading global organizations. And then for the last 8 years, I've worked with Caribbean organizations in sort of implementing that learning. And what I'd like to do today is to share with you some of those insights, particularly since, as Omar mentioned, a lot has been written lately about the impact that COVID-19 is actually having on hospitality. And of course, those changing expectations. Now, some key themes are obviously emerging with regards to customer expectations, and largely about the need for more information about safety from their travel providers. And also, as a result of that, the view that we really need to move towards more contactless technology to provide less of the person-to-person contact. But of course, this is really counterintuitive as far as, providing warm, friendly, person-to-person Caribbean-style service, or as one of my colleagues mentioned the other day, sort of relaxed Calypso-style service. And so I really want to begin to sort of explore some of these things. However, I want to first say, my first insight really is that things are changing on a daily basis. So even though we're actually seeing these insights coming through about customer expectations, the one thing that's constant about this is that it's changing day to day. So for example, customers are talking about, high visibility with regards to health and safety, talking about contactless technology. But the fact is that, if tomorrow we get a vaccine, expectations will go in one direction. Or if, as we're seeing at the moment, some of our source markets begin to go into a sort of second lockdown, expectations will go in another direction. And so what we have at the moment is a snapshot in time. This is where we are with customer expectations. So you've really got to treat it with a degree of healthy skepticism, and don't put all of your eggs into one basket, trying to deliver against what we know today about customer expectations. What I really want to say, and where I want to spend most of my time as far as my few opening minutes are concerned, is that whatever we do and whatever customer expectations emerge, the one thing that we're going to need going forward is a very agile and flexible workforce to meet whatever emerges as a result of these changing customer expectations. And so even though I'll briefly discuss what the current research is saying about customer expectations, I really will sort of go through that very quickly, because of what I really want to get to is what do we need to do with regards to our workforce so that we can and are able to actually deliver no matter what actually transpires. So if I can have, well, got first slide, thank you, Alexis. So really, to kick off, I just want to summarize some of the sort of key expectations. And this is a summary of local, well, I shouldn't say local. These are a summary of some very credible research organizations, like Digital Life Index, McKinsey, Gallup, and some of the things they're saying, of course, is that health and safety will make or break travel decisions. And we know that. Customers are making a decision on travel based on what the safety expectations are. Travelers and diners expect services that are contactless. Personalization becomes important. And one of the keys is trust and confidence. We as an industry need to rebuild the trust and confidence of our guests. Next slide, Alexis, please. So number one, travel and safety. Nothing new, and I know that we've had several other seminars that are sort of delivering some of these key messages. Safety is considered to be the number one decision maker when it comes to visiting a property, taking a flight, visiting the airport. These are, this is the number one consideration. And obviously we need to bear this in mind. We can move on, Alexis. Now, McKinsey have actually come up have actually surveyed about 3,500 of their clients. And these are largely across the US. You can see about 1,500 people from the US, 500 from the UK, Canada, Australia, and Hong Kong. And they've identified the actions that guests expect to see when they actually come to properties. So as you can see there, the number one thing is they want to see more intense room cleaning. And they'd like to see, where possible, the use of technology. So UV light disinfection, if possible. But again, what's more important is high visibility. Good cleaning standards and very visible cleaning standards. Obviously, things that we're already doing, they'd like to see temperature checks being conducted, lots of hand sanitizer distributed around properties, rooms aired for between 48 to 72 hours before reoccupied by new guests. And they want to see a visible sign of safety practices, safety in practice, things like staff wearing masks. With regards to contactless technology, again, guests are saying they want to see, they want to have the option of having more sort of contactless check-in, check-out, probably room keys enabled by their smartphones, etc. Move on, Alexis, please. These are a number of things that, these are the sort of technology that's emerging. Now, again, what I want to say is that there's nothing new here. This is all technology that we've been talking about for years within the industry. Things like mobile devices to open doors, guest apps, bandwidth being critical. But the important thing to realize is that what COVID has done is to ensure that we begin to focus on accelerating our strategies with regards to implementing some of these technologies. Move to the next slide, please. Now, obviously, personalization is also a key, in that guests would like to have more personal control over their visit. They want to have more personal control over the activities they participate in. They want to have more personal control, for example, when they actually have housekeeping visits. If we move on to the next slide. So these are some of the examples of personalized service that we're probably beginning to think about. Like, for example, a housekeeping app, where guests can request when housekeeping will visit, or if housekeeping needs to visit at all for that day. They can schedule or cancel a specific slot. They can identify frequency for changing of linen, and so on. Same with dining rooms. They can select to have in-room dining, cancel a reservation, reserve the specials, and so on. Now, of course, building apps cost money. We just don't always have the resources to do this. But again, there are opportunities for organizations to come together to begin to build a generic app that can be deployed across a number of properties. But also, it's about giving direct control to the guest. And simple things like creative use of WhatsApp is actually, something that can be used if we don't have an app. For example, since the lockdown, most of my dining decisions has been based upon the sort of promotions I'm getting through WhatsApp from, the hotels that are open, promoting their specials, promoting what's actually happening on that day. And to be frank, I find it's very effective. As a guest, as somebody who, uses these facilities quite often, WhatsApp promotions work really well with me. And there's no reason why we can't have closed user groups within the hotels to take the place of apps where we can't afford to implement them. Okay, again, if we can move on, please, Alexis. Now, crux of the matter, it's about building trust and confidence. We want our guests to come back, and to get our guests back, we need to communicate. We're not communicating enough. This is what our guests are saying. They're saying that, 80%, will make their choices to stay based on the communication they receive from the travel provider. However, 48% of them currently say that they're currently unsatisfied with the level of communication coming through. There's just not enough there. People aren't telling them about the sort of extensive safety protocols they've put in place. And also, they also want to see visible signs. They want to see consistency that, what we're saying, we're actually doing. So, when they arrive to site, they're actually seeing staff wearing their PPE equipment, wearing their masks, and not sort of hanging around their necks and, sort of half off their face, just covering their mouth and not their noses and so on. So they want to see consistency in the way that, safety protocols are actually implemented. If we can move on, please, Alexis. So as far as delivering trust and confidence, it's all about communication. communicating about what we've done. You know, we've spent a lot of money and a lot of businesses implementing these safety protocols, but we're not being very effective in many cases in actually telling our guests what we've actually done. And also about where that guidance is coming from. Because again, there are trusted sources of guidance, you know, like CDC, you know, like CARFA, and they want to know that this guidance is credible guidance as far as the protocols being implemented. We want to communicate about the changing status of the location. Some of our locations have had very low incidents. We need to be more upfront in promoting that. Also communicate about the readiness, our readiness to actually reopen. Be consistent with the messaging. When they come to site, they need to see high visibility cleaning. Certainly they need to be able to see the wearing of PPE correctly. Customers need and want to have more personal choice and to have more genuine and personalized experience. Again, move on. Now, this is really where I want to get to. The crux of the matter is that our workforce needs to change. You know, we have limited resources going forward, and you know, we're going to have to reassess, you know, the workforce going forward. We need to identify people. The first people we bring back are people that we think can adapt and show the new values required to respond to the sort of service expectations coming out from our guests. You know, that can demonstrate transparency. You know, our employees that can demonstrate transparency, are empathetic, are flexible. You know, and when I say flexible, can actually multitask. You know, we've moved beyond the point where we can actually have, you know, one role per person. You know, we really need to be able to look at given limited resources to bring back people who can actually multitask and perform several tasks. Need to be adaptable, you know, in a sense, you know, they need to be willing to actually use that discretionary effort in some cases, to want to go the extra mile. You know, I wanted to say something about discretionary effort. Some people find it difficult to understand that. Some of you may have heard the story from Ross Schaefer. So Ross Schaefer is a very, you know, very prominent speaker on customer service. And he said one day he arrived at, this is the Orlando Marriott. Got there very late at night, 12:30, ordered the burger and a Diet Coke. And when it arrived at his room, 10 minutes later, all he got was a Diet Pepsi with his burger. The person that brought it, a young lady called Maria Garcia, was very apologetic, did all the right things, burger was nice and warm, but you know, obviously it was a Diet Pepsi, no one was expecting. But she explained, she apologized and explained, sorry, you know, we've just run out, we've had a big conference, this is all we have. And you know, she was very apologetic, did her job, provided good service. He closed the door, a bit disappointed. 10 minutes later, a knock on his door. Maria Garcia back at the door with a bottle of Diet Coke. And he was, you know, surprised, where did this come from? All of a sudden, you told me you didn't have any. She explained that she went 4 floors down, she checked every single machine, every single vendor machine, until she actually found a Diet Coke and brought it back. And that is an example of what we mean by discretionary effort. You know, it's employees who want to go the extra mile, you know, who don't just deliver good service, it's about delivering great service. And we need to get to that point, because we have good service in the Caribbean, but we need to move from good to great. And that's really where we need to move. But to do that, you know, we really need to have engaged employees and motivated employees. And to have motivated employees, what we really need are leaders who actually are agile and flexible and show true leadership qualities. And that's the second thing we need to do, is to really focus on our middle, you know, our supervisors and managers, those in the middle, because that's where the greatest value in our organization is going to come from. You know, as I said, I've done a lot of work previously looking at how successful organizations deliver successful results, and their biggest enabler is that middle management layer, those supervisors and managers. And that's where we've got to put our efforts, you know, because we did a survey beginning of 2018, and what GMs in the Caribbean told us is that a lot of their supervisors and managers, the majority of supervisors and managers, are more transactional, you know, are more firefighting. They're not proactive. And we need to change that mindset, because with the emerging customer expectations coming out of COVID-19, whatever they are, we need to have an agile leadership team. So going forward, these last points I want to cover here, you know, it's more critical than ever to promote a leadership style that is agile, caring, and optimistic. And really, we need to be harsh about who we retain and who we let go, you know, because we need to make sure we have people in that can actually promote the right sort of style of leadership that is going to move organizations forward. You need to look for opportunities to build capacity within your organization. The cost of going external for training is tough. I mean, we're an external training provider, but we recognize that, it's going to be very difficult going forward. So there are opportunities to implement trainer programs where you can begin to train your own people to deliver some of that essential compliance training, like infection control, health and safety, food safety, diversity. Those things can be trained for within the organization. Keep teams motivated and engaged. They respond best to managers who inspire, recognize, and create a collaborative environment. And we have to make sure that our managers and supervisors are given the opportunity to build those skills, provide, new skills, create cross-training, cross-functional opportunities, etc. Visits to other hotels. Next slide, Alexis, please. And of course, we need to identify and retain the right frontline employees, and ensure that, because we're looking for more of a multi-skilled, multi-talented workforce where they don't have those skills, but they've got the right personality, then we need to develop them. Sometimes we need to sheep dip. I hope you understand the term sheep dip. So sometimes there is training that everyone has to go through, and that's like compliance training. But look for opportunities to personalize the training, to actually identify that there are certain skills and knowledge that individuals need, and they respond best to that. Again, training is expensive, but nowadays, there is so much e-learning out there that can be very, inexpensive. An organization like ours, for example, we've just introduced about 85 e-learning training courses, and with the right volumes, the price can come down to a minimum, to a mere $1 or $2 per course. So look for opportunities where you can actually train specifically for skills and knowledge to turn someone into that sort of multi-talented person you're going to need going forward. And finally, revisit your performance management systems. Performance management systems at the moment, all they do is promote the minimum level of performance required. That's how, a lot of our HR performance management systems work. As long as you do enough to meet that minimum level, you're not penalized. It's only when you drop below it. What we should be doing is to actually ensure that our systems promote moving from good to great, recognize and rewarding the positive behaviors and the values we talked about earlier. And of course, where employees aren't living up to those values, they need to be held accountable. Okay, so conclusion there, priorities have changed. Don't get too hung up though on those changing priorities, because as I said, customer expectations will change on a dime based on which way things emerge as a result of COVID. But you need to have a plan of action. That plan must involve building your middle management, because they are the greatest creators of value or the greatest destroyers of value in your organization. So the right supervisor, the right leadership team, you need to build that. And finally, select for the desired culture. Select your employees, bring the employees back that you think will meet the values and behaviors you're looking for. Right, folks, so that's it for me. My apologies for galloping through this. I do want to say that a lot of the sort of statistics I presented, you will actually find within the data sources at the end of the slide pack. So you'll be able to go back and actually go in detail and look at some of the research that I've sort of touched on very briefly today. So thank you for that, and back to Omar.
Thank you very much, John. John provided us with the findings of valuable research that can be applied to our businesses to help us navigate, the COVID-19 pandemic and how we return to some level of normalcy. So thank you very much. We now move over to Paul. Paul Collymore, our second presenter.
Well, thank you, Omar. Today, I'm going to reflect on an operations perspective in a COVID-19 era. It is important to understand some of the challenges as well that we can anticipate in this COVID-19 era. We're going to look at some opportunities as well, and we will also be looking at some training and development opportunities as well. So we can take ourselves to the first slide. I think a lot of us have grown up with the understanding that, in terms of providing great customer service, is that we have to present that service with a smile. And we've been trained, taught, and we have seen a number of interesting faces and expressions in terms of presenting ourselves the best way. None of us have been trained on how to wear a mask and still smile with seeing that smile through our eyes. Unlike some countries throughout the world and Asia where there's a growing practice for a number of reasons and factors, I think they have mastered it better than us. one of our challenges right now is to ensure that we effect the right behavior with everyone in terms of how do we train, how do we smile wearing a mask? And in our environment as well, and a lot of training that we have actually been facilitating in various businesses, and certainly in the environment where I work, is to anticipate our guests and knowing them by name. And now wearing a mask, we have some difficulty in recognizing some of these individuals. And it is a challenge, and is also an opportunity for us as we move forward to find out ways of how can we identify those guests that return to us or we have for the first time, that we remember the faces and be able to call them by name. And most importantly as well, one of the key things that I've seen in several businesses is that regardless of if you have the best of facilities, buildings, services, etc., a number of our guests and visitors to our various destinations, they return because of our staff. And they can spot them from a mile. And like a song that I'm very familiar with, Know the Face. You know, some of them just might not remember the name, but know the face. But it's also going to be a very difficult one. And it's one that I think that many companies have to come up with a very innovative and creative way for both guests and staff to remember faces. Well, as a challenge, there's certainly some opportunities there. We can discuss that as we move forward into the other slides. I think John mentioned it well in terms of engagement, and if we can stay on the first slide, yeah, still on challenges. John highlighted it well in terms of the importance of engagement. And engaging staff as well is that their highlights and their lowlights. And I think it's very important that if you're building a team, and you continue to build a team, and again, you want to provide the best service out there, they're part of the stakeholders within the organization, and they need to know the lowlights, and equally in terms of the highlights as well, because it allows them to plan and understand the next step in planning their future. And particularly in this environment, now more than ever, the use of Zoom and engaging staff on meetings and letting them have an understanding in terms of why are we not seeing a pickup in the business from our key source markets? And whereas they have access to various tools in which they can find out that information, is important that we share that information as well. We've seen an impact in all key source market, whether it be the UK, the USA, or Canada. Also from our Caribbean market, we've actually seen a reduction there. During the reopening of hotels as well, it's certainly not business as usual as it relates to payroll. And particularly in the area of housekeeping, the costs per occupied room and cleaning rooms, and certainly in public areas, have had to increase. And the simple reason for that is that in those areas that have high touch points, there is a requirement to have continuous cleaning, and that is a point that our customers or visitors are also very keen to find out and ensure that it's happening, because safety is a key point in terms of the travel. So we have actually seen a number of impacts as it relates to unplanned expenses, severance payments, recurrent expenses on the mandatory protocols, and which impacts cash flow. And as John pointed out earlier, in these difficult times, one has to look at what is going to be the capacity building to effect training within the areas of the organizations to ensure that training still continues and top of mind, and also the enforcement of all the protocols that are being put in place. So we can go to the second slide, which deals with the opportunities. It's very important reinforcing the service and the hospitality culture. Service essentially is the technical aspect of the job, and the things that we do in the hospitality is that genuine service that we provide to our customers. Is very important that even as we reopen, that we find ways of reorienting staff back into the operation, ensuring that they understand the fundamentals of our service or our culture, so that it's not lost. Staff have been off for a very long time. It's very important that we have that engagement with them. There are some very good opportunities there for us as well as we reopen. And reopen in terms of providing that extraordinary customer service as well. A number of our visitors and guests want to find out what it is that we have done since we have actually reopened, and what are some of the things that we are doing within the respective organizations. I see the opportunity there where we can actually get our guests involved and engaged to ask them some questions. There's some Q&As, there can be some videos as well, and they could share their personal experience. And this here becomes a useful marketing opportunity in terms of telling that story and the experience that they would have had while in resort. We have seen a number of training platforms being made available. So in terms of developing and utilizing these training platforms for our staff is very important. I've seen here in St. Lucia, information being circulated reminding a number of staff to take full advantage of the platforms that are available. Some of them expire at the end of September. So it's very important now more than ever for HR departments, departmental heads, GMs within resorts as well, to find out about all of these training opportunities, ensure that staff are receiving and benefiting from the training. This training that we are seeing and benefiting from ordinarily would not have been made available for free. And a lot of the content is very relevant in today's world, particularly as we adapt in a COVID era. John mentioned in terms of the importance of using contactless technology and the fact that it was always there and now more than ever. A lot of us are being forced to use it. A lot of our guests and the expectations is in terms of to have contactless communication, whether it be in terms of that pre-registration, arrival, request for services during their stay as well within resort, or whether it be in terms of the bill settlement. It's very important the use of these technologies. So there are some others as well available that can also help with the assignment of work for whether it be maintenance, housekeeping staff. They can also update the status of the work in which they're doing as well. These here are going to ensure that we still provide the great service that our guests are expecting, and that we're able to expedite it and feedback the information as well to our various departments as well. During this pandemic, we're asking a lot of our staff to be understanding. A number of them would have been impacted in excess of 6 months. Some of them will be longer, some of them are facing severance. But what we found during this hard time is that government, they've been able to provide a level of income support for a period of time. But that too does carry an expiry time because the money must come from somewhere. And with all efforts in trying to use taxes to offset some of these social welfare systems, we know that we've seen a reduction in taxes. There are creative ways in which the companies can look at how can they help their staff during these hardships, this hardship. And some of them can be where you can look at putting a levy on a guest bill, which is discretionary. And once you get that front contribution, that can also be collected and used at a very time. Because what is important for some of these programs, why it is important for some of these programs to be put in place, is that we focus, we have an expectation that they must go there and provide service. But it's also very important to recognize some of the challenges that they are experiencing and some of the level of hardship support that will be required for them. And it shows that we are well looking after our employees as well. Training, service with a smile whilst wearing a mask, smiling with your eyes. It may seem very easy to do, but I challenge all of you on this call today, 200 of you, put on a mask, look at yourself in the mirror, and rate your smile from 1 to 10, and tell me how you view your smile. It's probably better to ask someone else who's looking at you. So a lot of work is required from us right now, trainers, managers, leaders in all areas of our respective businesses, is that we need to also look at the body language and train people, train ourselves on how to smile while wearing that mask. I don't know how many of you have had the opportunity to look at some of the facial expressions of individuals wearing a mask, but this slide that we're going to look at now is a good representation of some of the facial expressions that we can identify with. The question is which one do we want our staff to show to our guests, whether it be internal or external staff? Again, these are some visuals that we can use, and it's important. Some of us are very visual learners, and I think in the respective areas where staff work, it is useful to use some visuals and also to have some reminders on the importance of using the smiley face and a happy face. Trust me, it will take some of us a very long time for us to adapt, to ensure that that smile, whether we use our body language to open up arms and to greet people. We have grown accustomed not to be wearing a mask. We have difficulty with it. We also have difficulty remembering not to shake hands. And some of the engagement that we have with some of our customers is that they expect either a knock, a handshake, or some of them haven't seen their favorite stars for such a long time, they're looking for an embrace. But I've seen some expressions being done in some destinations where there is more of a heartfelt welcome, thanks, and the images showing staff putting their hands over their heart, hand over heart. We can go to the next slide. Now, I think John did a good explanation in terms of looking at leadership development, education, and employee recognition. Now, there are some hotels who have actually remained open during this pandemic because of the nature of their business model, whether it be a homeowner model where they're homeowner and tenants staying in respective resorts. There are other businesses that remain open, providing services as well that are very important. It is important now more than ever that we focus on and we look at people development. And if I talk about the people development within the Eastern Caribbean and the wider Caribbean, it must be complemented with robust training and developmental plans. As soon as there's some normalcy that should return to travel, there's an opportunity for us to use the CSME, CARICOM Single Market, and the economy, the free movement for skilled laborers to travel within the Caribbean and to gain experience. We have seen there prior to COVID-19 opportunities where individuals have been traveling through the region, getting the opportunity to get new learning and new knowledge as well. And that's an opportunity there as well. There are creative ways as well in terms of looking at new opportunities. We can have exchange learning as well, where we can work with other hotels as well, where it can be open forums and discussion to understand what is some of the new things that you have adapted or implemented within your organization during this COVID period, and look at sharing information. I think that there is an opportunity there for us to really look at further engagement and working with our respective partners. I think that we are too good in the Caribbean in terms of our respective businesses that we shouldn't use this opportunity, whether through Zoom or any other technology, to look at the information sharing as well. Through the technical vocational education, I think in most Caribbean islands, that is available to many businesses where there are occupational standards that have been developed in many disciplines to create a level of competency-based training. This is training that is not focused on hardcore examination, pass and fail, but it does take the employ through a series of sequential steps in terms of training, development, and taking them through the processes so that they understand and they're competent at their job. I think that there is an opportunity there in the respective Caribbean islands as well, where many companies can turn to them as well and get in that information as well. I'm very familiar that there are programs in place in terms of developing leaders as well in terms of middle management, and these courses, this content and the occupational standards are readily available, and I think more contact can be made there to help organizations as well in terms of the training and the development. While our Caribbean educational system agrees and provides strong academic curriculum, if we are focusing on our customer service and we want to inculcate that from the area of primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions, it's important for us to look to see how we can look at more fostering stronger partnerships with either the primary, secondary, tertiary institutions through internship programs and outreach in terms of going into the schools as well, and creating awareness in terms of the service within the industry that we much enjoy. We have a program through the CHTA, which focuses on young leaders, developing emerging leaders. And this is between the ages of 25 through to 45. And it provides them with an opportunity where they can learn from, whether it be past presidents, point them in a direction in terms of improving their leadership. And I think that is a positive feature that was implemented through the current president of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. Now, the final point I just want to make here is employee recognition must be done timely and consistently. Is needed now more than ever. And particularly at this point of time, we need to show our employees in terms of the value and the appreciation that they bring to the organization. So these are some of the couple of points that I've shared today. This is my perspective today, and I look forward to any questions and we can answer them.
Thank you very much, Paul. Paul gave us some, insightful challenges and opportunities that the industry face and how we can pivot. I really like those facial expressions. And initially when people thought about smiling with their eyes, everybody said, how is it possible? But very much possible. And your facial expressions, whether good or bad, can come through whether you're wearing a mask or not. So thank you very much, Paul. And then I'm going to briefly look at customer service in COVID times. And then if we can just move on to the first slide. As you know, Jamaican hospitality is warm, it's fuzzy. It's basically Caribbean hospitality. You know your customers, and even the first time customers become part of the family of the hotel. And as I said before, it's straight from the heart. What is it that is needed now to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic? You need flexibility, agility. As employees, some of them will have to work from home. Customer service and customer service leaders must ensure that their teams remain engaged, healthy, effective, and productive in their work environments, despite having to manage them remotely. So leaders must always find ways to enable the employees to meet the customer needs. Organizations need to understand that if they're bureaucratic, risk-averse, sticking to the rules, and protecting the business, this will lead to employees only doing what they are told, not going out of the box, not going out of the way to help the customer. And employees will be unable to think and act in the best interest of the customer and not able to empathize. They actually need to get the employees to fit into the lives of the customer instead of the customers fitting into the lives of the business. And one company that was successfully able to do that was Amazon. And now Amazon fits into our lives. Everything we need is there, and at whatever time, and it gets to us when we need it. So that's really how we need to pivot, fit into the lives of the customers. Empathy, which was mentioned before by John, the ability to understand and share the feelings of others. And this is both for the employees and also for the customers. Customers will definitely remember the things that the business was unable to do, right? When they get back to some semblance of normalcy. and these memories will remain. On the contrary, when customers, they will also remember the things that excited them, wowed them, you went out of your way, and you know, whether it's changing removing penalties, changing arrival, departure dates. Things now need to be with ease instead of all the bureaucracy that we sometimes see in our businesses. Most important thing is the customer is fine at the end of the experience. We must empower our employees to remove all the barriers so that the customer is served, you know, and that there is job satisfaction, job performance. Boundarylessness. Customer service persons must remove all the boundaries to solve customer problems. You know, employees need to cross boundaries. It was said before, cross-train to improve operations. They need to bring the customer into focus at all times where they work to solve the customer problems. Employee morale need to be positive. Now, managers, leaders need to know that they are responsible for the employee morale. They must ensure that they create a work environment where the employees are motivated, engaged, satisfied, and they want to come to work and contribute. So employee experience must be connected to the customer experience. Next slide. Ensure digital platforms are up to date, including websites, travel partner, extranets, and social media. You know, with the restrictions surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic, many businesses have to depend on online resources. Ensure that you provide adequate information for your partners, customers to access the information in a clear and concise format. Market your properties or destinations' unique selling points, your USPs. Consider reviewing your current brand position and adapt to the global trends within the tourism space. Conduct your SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? What are things that you need to work on? You know, your weaknesses. What opportunities and threats lie out there? Where there are financial restrictions, many consumers will become a lot more particular about getting value for their money. So use this crisis as an opportunity to highlight the features that make your product special and an ideal choice for the customer. Stay engaged on social media with guests and key partners. Again, we said that before, the future is digital. The pandemic has forced many companies to pivot their brand positioning and create virtual experiences for the key audience around the globe. Host live sessions that teach people interesting life hacks they can apply to their daily lives. Share information, share interesting facts about your property and destination that will maintain your presence in the space and remain top of the minds of your customers. I know here at our property, we had several information sessions, several live sessions, cooking demonstrations with our chefs. We took them up to our organic garden. You know, we had the kids club manager come in and do some sessions for the kids. So we had a number of sessions just to stay focused, just to stay on top, you know, in the minds of our customers. Invest in technological advancements to help with direct booking conversions. You know, with less money, we will have to maximize on the technical resources that exist to improve our customer experiences. This includes creating a relationship of trust prior to arrival, delivering on service commitment while on location, and maintain those relationships post-departure. All right, so there are many customer relations management software that will help you to maximize interactions with the customers. You know, reach out to them before they come. Tell them what to expect. You know, what changes. You can have those sessions. You can set up those Zoom sessions with each and every customer before they come. Next slide. People development the Jamaican way. Foster a sense of togetherness by keeping in touch with employees and colleagues. You know, have your HODs develop these WhatsApp groups or find ways to communicate, stay in touch with them. At my hotel, we had these WhatsApp groups and we kept in touch, let them know what's happening both at the hotel, when are we looking to reopen, you know, what's happening on the general island front. So we at least kept them informed. So it helped to remove some of the anxiety that they have. Anticipate staff concerns and provide adequate updates and resources to support impact. Consider mental health and always be positive on communicating any information. Their mental health is important, you know, and sometimes all it takes is just a little conversation with them and trying to give them advice. It's not only, yes, they're going through financial difficulties, but sometimes they just want somebody to talk to and give them some advice. So it's best, reach out to them on a one-on-one basis. Implement training, revise training to introduce new policies, procedures, and practices to the operation. That's a part of the whole protocols and how we move forward, how we, the fact that you can't hug anymore, how do you welcome visitors, all of those, you'll have to retrain your staff on how to deliver in the new normal. Provide credible information on industry to ensure confidence when communicating with the visitors. And this is very, very important. They need to know what to say, what not to say, and how to say it. So at least it doesn't, cause any increased anxiety to the customer. So you must touch your employees, very, very important. Next slide. How to develop leaders and managers from the workplace. Through management coaching with limited staffing now, a front runner for many operations. There's going to be some level of right sizing. This is an opportunity to exercise empowerment among line and middle managers. This will encourage them to take the initiative and arrive at solutions on their own. There are online resources, many online resources, webinars, newsletter subscriptions, social media, LinkedIn, all of those platforms are online resources that can provide valuable information. A lot of them are free, and they're free. They're free, offering employees, how to coping mechanisms, how to navigate the new norm. So we just need to. Some of them are you may need to pay, but there are a lot of free online resources out there. Learning from the crisis. There's a saying, never let a good crisis go to waste. So, and if anything else, the occurrence of the pandemic must have taught us that life can change in an instant. Who would have thought 2020 would have turned out like this? Use the time to do some self-reflection and consider how you may improve on the circumstances surrounding your own work life, personal life, and both. Ask yourself, what has the pandemic taught me? What have I been procrastinating on? And now is the time for me to make a priority. I've been procrastinating on my dissertation, doing my doctorate since 2015, and done with all the academics since 2017. And I've been writing my dissertation and stopping and starting. And, but guess what? Life goes on. I have to finish. And I'm dedicated to finishing it, within the next 3 to 6 months. But there are things which you have been procrastinating on, and you need to put those into perspective, prioritize. What are areas that I need to improve? There are areas, do some some introspection and see what is it that you need to improve on. How is my mental health? If you can skip to the next slide, please, Alexis. How is my mental health? In all of this, there is going to be some level of depression or some level of anxiety. How is it that as an individual, how do I stay healthy? And this is very, very important. Again, you may not need to go as the expensive route to go see a therapist, as many of our friends in North America do, but just simply talking to somebody who you can relate to, your pastor, a trusted friend, or your partner, if you have that relationship with the partner, to just discuss and be open about certain things and just get things, off your mind. How are my relationships? Look at all your relationships that you have, work relationships, personal relationships. How can I improve them? How can I make them better? How can I be a better person? That is the goal at the end of this. You must become adaptable. Must. We said it before, flexibility, adaptability. You must become agile. There's nothing that you're going to do now that, it was done before. You must think, how do I pivot? I've seen some of my colleagues in the industry that they pivoted to selling all these safety items when their source of business dried up. So it's not just dropping your hands. What can I do? How can, think about those things. What can I do? How can I ride the storm through? This has to end. There is no, it can't go forever. you know, but how do I ride the storm out so that at the end I can come out at least, you know, I may not come out with tons of money or whatever, but I can come out being a better person. I can come up, I can survive. And this is all we need to do. We just need to be able to survive so that at the end we're there and we can say we got through it so that we can pivot to the next level. So you must become adaptable. So your service commitment, regardless of the discipline of the industry, must never see the impact of the unfortunate circumstances. While consumers will be more understanding of changes to a system or product they have grown to trust, they will not be eager to accept disappointments. So reiterate your value, your added value to your employer. All right. Employer reserved skill set. Being a well-rounded individual is very, very important. Many of us have hidden talents and extensive academic achievements which stretch beyond your daily line of work. Consider using and applying those hidden talents. All right. Go back into your playbook. You all have hidden talents. Pursue cost-effective personal development. There are many free ways to improve your resume, your talent bank, and your overall development. The internet of everything offers so many options for you to explore during the downtime. Some of which, you know, we can discuss on this slide, which is your cross-training or shadowing. Cross-train, you know, talk to your boss and see what is it that I'd love to do and how can I get the necessary exposure to that area. Shadow somebody who is good at what they do. You know, at the end, you must come out being more well-rounded. There's lots of online certification that are out there. Google Garage, HubSpot, edX, just to name a few. You know, spend some time searching the internet and find some of these things are applicable to what you want to do. There's organized certification or accreditation through local authorities. You know, the CHTA ran some courses. Here in Jamaica, we also ran courses through our Ministry of Tourism and our local Tourism Enhancement Fund. There are many of online, you know, organized certifications. Some you may have to pay for, some are offered free of cost, and you know need to, you know, pivot and see what else is out there. So it's up to you at the end of this all to ensure that, you know, you have the necessary skills, because you may be one of the lucky ones that are called back to your jobs. And as such, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable, you have to be able to move those barriers so that the customer is pleased. They will, as I said before, the customer will remember the negatives, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's the ones who move the mountains during these challenging times. Those are the experiences that customers will remember and they will talk about, and you'll come out on top. All right, that's it for me for my presentation. Vanessa.
Well, thank you, Omar, Paul, and John. I mean, you've certainly given us a lot to think about and lots to process, but great insights in terms of how best to proceed with, you know, today's changing landscape. We have a few questions, but I want to start with regarding Caribbean education. I mean, both Paul and Omar made reference about resources through training hospitality schools and others, but we had a very specific question regarding the role of UE Hospitality School and its lack of interface with the industry. Some references about, you know, thinking ahead that the integration with UE will be essential for the future of the region, and then how we can work together with them. If any of you want to expand a little bit, and maybe even beyond, working more collaboratively with other hospitality schools in the region as well as training schools.
Yes, thanks, Vanessa. That's something a lot of our institutions in the Caribbean have been caught with their pants down in terms of how this whole digital revolution, you know, online learning. I did half my master's online, and my entire doctorate is online. You know, and this is where a lot of our universities and college need to pivot. We are working people in the industry. We don't have the time to go and spend 3 hours, you know, and they need to be flexible. They need to be, that link between industry and academia is still lacking. And I find that our institutions are old school, and it's a textbook. they need to, and we also have that responsibility to reach out to them, to bridge the divide and get them together, get us together so that the institutions can offer training programs that are relevant to and specific to hospitality. I think it's still lacking there, and a lot of discussions need to happen so that we can get them involved. They are teaching. They are teaching the young ones who are going into university and college. Where the gap is that personal development program that is lacking for the working professional and academia. So that's where we need to go. Paul?
No, I agree with you, Omar. I see some evidence, though, in terms of some attempts being made by, let's say, if I make reference to UWI KFIL, where they have the KFIL School of Business, there are specific programs, but it doesn't necessarily cater to the points that you have mentioned in terms of looking at more professional development programs. I think more the professional development programs that we're seeing are coming out of some specific educational institutions out of the US that really cater to a number of disciplines within the hospitality industry. So I think that in terms of making the programs a little bit more relevant, I think it maybe is a broader discussion that needs to be held with them at some time.
Where I'd like to see them also focus is on leadership. And probably because I'm so intimate with leadership, both my master's and doctorate are in leadership. I think, well, I don't have my doctorate yet. I'm working on it, but I'm claiming it. I think it all starts with leadership, because if you have the right leader in place who can create that motivating environment for the workforce, I think that's half of our battle that's done. You know, and I think not enough emphasis is focused on this one important aspect of management. We need to do a lot more with leadership and develop our young leaders, you know.
Exactly. And it's also collaboration. We want them as much as possible. Imagine if we were able to offer those tools and training opportunities within our regional training institutions, rather than having people go to the United States or any other locations to get that kind of like. We have a question here with regards to, of course, with all of the challenges and the financial, less financial resources that businesses have. We're talking about technology, and more it's apparent that in order for you to satisfy your guests' needs, you're going to have to move towards using more contactless technology. For those properties that do not have the financial capability of investing on those resources, how can you still provide that contactless experience without the technology?
Yeah, I think it's important then to look at a creative approach and look at the principles of the contactless technology. So you really, so I'm giving you an example. You don't want your guests checking into a hotel to come to the front desk. You're trying to get all of the information from them. I think there's still a way to get pre-registration information prior to the arrival of the guests. And this is something that was being collected prior to COVID. The question is, you want them to go straight to their room and have a seamless check-in without coming to the front desk. I think there are going to have to be creative ways in terms of how you look at making that happen in the absence of not having the technology. I think there is an opportunity where small hotel groups can work with the National Hotel and Tourism Association to find out ways and means in which some of the larger hotels are in a position to provide it, or to see whether or not there is any support being provided from, let's say, a fund access agency being supported by government, or whether or not there is any opportunity with your local commercial bank to help you. But I think it is something that there's a movement that you're seeing more and more. This is the expectation of travelers in terms of having a contactless check-in. But it is one where you're going to have to possibly start looking at the principles, and if you don't have the contact in terms of that specific technology. So there's one piece of technology called Intelity. And if you're not in a position to go with Intelity, there might be some other software programs out there that might be able to help you that might not need that significant investment.
John, remember, it's all about scalability. So some things you may not be able to afford, but yes, you look and see what are that, maybe it's one thing that you could be able to implement that it's, you know, cost effective. I know, check with your, as you mentioned, Paul, check with your local authorities. I know here in Jamaica, our government is giving tourism grants for small and medium-sized tourism entities. You know, there may be low interest loans, soft loans that are provided. So you have to do a little research, check with your local hotel association that, you know, that should be able to provide you with some information. But it's all, as a small operator, don't think like the big guys. Look into, everything is all about scalability and what you can do in your own environment and how you can, you know, you can gradually build on that. So don't be overwhelmed with everything that everybody else is doing.
John?
No, I just want to agree with everything that Paul and Omar has actually said. You know, what guests are looking for are options. You will still have the traditional guest who wants to actually have some face-to-face contact and will want to go to their front desk. So don't try to move all in one direction without actually recognizing that, you know, there's a set of customers across the spectrum who will want different types of services. So yes, we need to move towards contactless where we can. And, you know, there are opportunities there, as Paul mentioned, maybe working together with your with the local authority to see if they, you know, can form some kind of collaborative effort as far as costing is concerned. But also look at other options, look at closed WhatsApp groups and activities like that. There are ways of offering guests, you know, options without necessarily having to go to the cost of a full-fledged, you know, new technological innovation. So, you know, just give the guests, all they want is choice, you know, and so look for other opportunities to provide that sort of choice and different options.
Good. How do you implement a training program that it's measurable based on customer feedback, the voice of the visitor? How do you customize this training for the need of individual hotels and the need of the individual staff members within a hotel?
Okay, if I could probably start on that one. You know, there's always a structured approach to the way you actually identify your training needs, you know, do a needs analysis, and then identify exactly what you can do at an organizational level and what you can do at an individual level. So it starts with actually having a good understanding of what's driving the change. And of course, that means having a good understanding of what customer expectation you are trying to meet. So once you've done that, then you can actually build your needs analysis, identifying where the gaps are within your skill base. As I said before, the key thing that organizations need to do once they, you know, as they're restarting, is to reassess their workforce. You're going to have to bring back people, first of all, who are already multi-skilled. You will have people in the organization who are multi-skilled, who actually will go the extra mile. And to be frank, given cost restrictions, those are the people you're going to bring back first. And then you're going to look to actually fill the gaps with those who actually aren't multi-skilled, so that you can actually give them the opportunity to build those skills. As I said before, sometimes you're going to have to sheepdog them in the sense that you provide them all with the same level of training, particularly when it comes to things like safety protocols. But of course, there are ways of actually providing specific training routes for individuals, particularly if you go down the route of what's called micro-training. So these are e-learning courses which are short and sharp, requires, you know, the learner to be online for about 10 to 15 minutes at a time, usually with a smartphone. You know, for example, we run a series of online training courses at this moment in time. We have about 30 students at a time. We're doing it completely by Zoom, and you know, these micro training courses, which are very short, 15-minute courses. Well, actually, they're long. The whole course is about an hour and a half, but they're split into 15-minute modules, and that's an ideal length for somebody to actually pick up, understand the skill, and begin to try and practice it. And you just have to look for other options, and the options are there. We just need to be a little bit more, you know, flexible in the way we identify these options.
Yeah, that's very thorough, John. But if it's even to do your internal training, you know, have your housekeeper and your housekeeping manager and a housekeeper do a video, and then you tape it and send to create this WhatsApp group and send to, you know, your employees. It doesn't take rocket science. You know, it's not a lot of money. There's no money involved there, but you can look for these creative ways in-house, and then you can start with in-house first, and then supplement it with additional that you may have to pay for.
Absolutely, you know, you're right. You know, sequence of service training, you know, where you actually have someone who you know and who's very good at doing that particular sequence of service, tape it, 5-10 minutes, circulate it to the rest of the team.
No, I agree and support. You know, I think that if you follow that approach, you can get things done. I think sometimes the we want to do at least 10 different training programs, but just start with one. Take one job description, do a job breakdown, create the sequential steps, take the staff members that are very strong that know the job better than anyone else, and off you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We actually had a comment about with social distance requirements and safety protocols. Of course, the number of in-person face-to-face trainings, ability reduces. So the concern from this participant is, it's the online versions may not be the most effective means of training hands-on on the job learners. So any thoughts, further thoughts or ideas in terms of how else can they, properly train, particularly as it relates to hands-on jobs?
Yeah.
Well, hands-on has to be in smaller groups. I think, it could be a one-on-one. It could be 3 persons versus 6 versus 10. So, it's just smaller groups as opposed to your larger groups. Paul?
Yep. Omar, I agree with you, because if I look at the protocols here in St. Lucia, in terms of internal meetings, in terms of a requirement, not more than 10. So therefore, you can have the social distancing in place. Again, you don't have to go with 10. You can go with the one-on-one. And as John pointed out, you look at those individuals that, in terms of your needs assessment, those that may have higher risk and exposure for service failure, and focus on them. But I think that we are in a COVID environment. There's not a full prescriptive approach, but there are things that are going to have to emerge. And I think one factor is going to have to be based on the learning style of the individual employee.
Yep.
John, any notes?
No, I agree. I mean, every individual has a different learning style, and some people react better on face-to-face learning. Some actually like to look at videos. Some will actually respond better to, online courses. So you just need to recognize that you need to offer a range of blended learning options, because everyone's an individual and they will actually learn better depending on what's on offer. So again, all I'm saying is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Look at a multitude of opportunities to actually deliver that learning. Doesn't always have to be face-to-face. Face-to-face, I've got to say personally, I like face-to-face, it's very effective. However, there are other learning styles that we need to take advantage of. And again, online e-learning, and also, Zoom sessions, face-to-face Zoom sessions are very effective. And you just blend the two. Provide some online, also provide some face-to-face Zoom, and where you can, some face-to-face sessions in person.
We're getting close to our end time, but we do have one last question that's very interesting. Can TripAdvisor customer service ratings play a role with customer service measurement, i.e. to achieve and maintain a desired star rating?
I think the star rating, let's say for a resort, if I use a resort, is largely dependent on whether or not there's a rating body within the destination. And from the start of the operation of the resort, one must determine what star rating that you are aligning your property with and the standards as well. So while I think that once there is an alignment between the two that I've just mentioned, and the training and the development that you have put in place, it should really equal the outcome of the reported results, whether it be qualitative or quantitative on TripAdvisor.
That's very important, Paul, because a lot of times we tell ourselves we're running 4- and 5-star hotels, but we're providing 3-star service. So you need to, if you're providing a 4-star hotel experience, what is it? You need to do your research. What is it that I need to do to provide it? What services do I need to offer? And you need to zero in on those and ensure that you're providing them. But there is that disconnect. So you need to ensure that what you say you are is what you're delivering.
And there are benchmarks out there you can actually look for. So there are some specific benchmarks, but of course they, as Paul mentioned, they vary across the world. So really we need to decide what benchmark we're following and then try to apply that.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your insights. It's been very instructive, and I wish we had, probably like 3 more hours to be discussing further this subject. But our time is up. Thank you so much for joining us today and for your insight. And since we're along the lines of customer service, before we say goodbyes and a few other closing remarks, a big thank you to the team at CHTA, Alexis for, as usual, helping us with our technical part of the Zoom presentation and all of the arrangements. And a special kudos to our membership and database coordinator, Claire, who today celebrates 2 years of serving CHTA members. So with that being said, remember to join us next week on Wednesday at 4 p.m. for a special session in partnership with the U.S. Meat Expert Federation on Certified Angus Beef. And on Thursday at 2 p.m., our regular spot, Traveler Intentions and Safety Concerns, what's the latest word from the American travel? The on-demand video recording will be shared with registered delegates within 48 hours of the webinar and will also be available for download at the CHTA website. Thank you for joining us, and we invite you to follow us in your social media platform of choice. And we hope to see you next week on Wednesday and Thursday. Thank you so much and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.